Hello, my name's John, and I'm a storyteller. I love stories. I hope you do as well. And I've got lots of wonderful stories to tell you. I've actually produced a website with all these stories on, www.biblestorycards.co.uk. You can see all my stories. I'm also a bit of a painter, and so I paint pictures to help me tell my stories. I hope you enjoy them. Hello everyone. You'll recognize that it's John here again. And I've got another one of my stories here. Actually, I was just saying to my friend Bill, I think this is one of my favorite stories in the Bible because it's such a fantastic account of something that Jesus did. So great a thing, you couldn't imagine anything greater. Anyway, it all starts with some friends of Jesus. They lived at a place called Bethany, which is quite near to Jerusalem. And there was 3 of them in the family. There was a brother and 2 sisters. They were quite different from each other, really. For a start, there was Martha. She was the older sister. And she was what you'd call a bit of a fussy britches, you know. She was always messing about with things. Doing things in the home, you know, making sure everything was neat and tidy and so on, and putting the others in their place. And I suppose Lazarus too caused her a bit of problem at times. Actually, there was one occasion when Mary, who was quite a different character, she was quite a sort of thoughtful person, and she was sitting along with Jesus' disciples, listening to his message, listening to his teaching. And Martha had all the disciples there for food, and she had a lot to do getting everything ready. And she was fussing in and out, you see, and saw Mary sitting there, and turned to Jesus and said, "Master, tell my sister to come and help me. I've got so much to do here." And she's just sitting there listening. "No," said Jesus. "She's doing a good thing, and I'm not going to stop her doing that." Anyway, there were times when the disciples used to go there to spend a night and to relax. But this time they were quite a way somewhere else. And Martha was worried about Lazarus because he didn't look too well that day. And as the day wore on, he got sicker. And eventually said, "I've got to go to bed. I am really feeling very poorly." And off he went to bed. They went and looked in on him later, and he seemed to be sinking away. He seemed to be getting worse and worse. And so they decided that they would send a message to Jesus and ask him to come as soon as he could. The message just simply read, "He who you love is sick." I'm sure Jesus knew that Martha was saying to him, "Will you come? Will you come and help us? If you come here, then his sickness will get better." Well, Jesus got the message from the young messenger, and he read it out, and the disciples looked at one another and thought, "Well, why doesn't he decide to go?" But he doesn't do anything. He hasn't said anything, so they didn't want to say anything, so they left it for the day. And the next day they were thinking, right, well, today we'll probably be going to see Mary, Martha and Lazarus. But Jesus didn't say anything. No. Till eventually the disciples were wondering why Jesus wouldn't go to see his dear friends Mary, Martha and Lazarus. And he said to them, "You know, Lazarus is sick. But he's sleeping. And I'm going eventually to wake him out of his sleep. Oh, they said, that's good if he's sleeping. It'll do him good to have a good sleep. And Jesus sort of sounded a bit fed up with them, really. And he said, Lazarus is dead. What? And I'm glad that I wasn't there. What on earth is he talking about? Why was he glad he wasn't there when Lazarus was dying and eventually did die? But I'll tell you what, he said, let's go now. So off they set together. Jesus had had trouble in the area around Jerusalem by Bethany, and they were a bit frightened of going. In fact, Thomas, who was always a bit cynical about things, said, "Come on then, let's go, we might as well die with you." Well, off they went. Finally, on the way there, Jesus told them the sad story about Lazarus being dead. But he said, I'm speaking about his situation here, and I am now going to show you the power of God, the mighty works of God. So anyway, finally they arrived at Bethany. And who was first one to meet them? Well, you can guess. It was Martha. And Martha came up to Jesus, and she was obviously very angry. It wasn't like Martha to be angry with Jesus. But she came in front of him and she said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. But even now, I'm sure that if you pray, God will listen to you." Jesus drew near to Martha and he said some amazing things to her. "Your brother will rise again." "Oh, I know that," said Martha. "I know that when the last day comes, the resurrection day, my brother's going to rise again like the rest of us." Jesus said, "Martha, I am the resurrection and the life." Now, you may not know it, but Jesus was saying something very special there, because he was using a name right out of the Old Testament, the absolute name for God, the complete name for God. God called himself to Moses, "I am." That's my name, I am. And here's Jesus saying, "I am the resurrection and the life." Well, there's a place in the Bible which says that in him was life, and the life was the light of men. So Jesus was really saying, listen, your brother's life has gone, but I own everyone's life, and I can bring it back. "Now," said Jesus to Martha, "do you believe that?" "And I do believe that," said Martha. "Well, show me where you put him." So they went to the cemetery where Jesus was, where Lazarus was buried. And there was this great tomb cut out of the rock. And there was a huge, great boulder rolled across the front of it. And Jesus said, "Take it away. take the boulder away. Let's go to where Lazarus' body is lying. Martha said, don't do that, Lord, because he's been dead for 4 days, and dead bodies in hot climates like Jerusalem, Palestine, start to go rotten after a while, and they smell awful. My brother will be stinking by now. Don't do it. Listen, said Jesus, didn't I say to you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? So they rolled the stone away, and Jesus looked up to heaven and prayed to his Father God. And he said, Lord, I know that you always hear me when I pray, but for these people I say it on purpose so they'll believe that you hear me. Well, there was silence all around as they all wondered what he was going to do next. And to their great surprise, and perhaps to their fright in a way, Jesus shouted out, Lazarus, come out! I read in one passage in a book about the Bible that somebody said, you know why Jesus shouted, Lazarus, come out? Because if he hadn't said Lazarus, everybody that was dead would have come out of their graves. Because Jesus is the power of life. But he was calling specifically to dead Lazarus. Everybody looked on in amazement. And this is what happened. Suddenly, out of the tomb, this character came stumbling out, covered from head to foot in bandages, which kept the spices in that they used to put around dead bodies, like they did with Jesus, you remember. And he was bound up with all these grave clothes, as they were called. And Jesus said, take them off him. Let him go free. In other words, he's alive now. He's no longer a tomb, a dead body in a tomb. Well, you can imagine what people thought as they saw this happen. But do you know, there were some people there who were so angry with Jesus, who so hated him, who couldn't believe that he could do such a thing. And the only thing they could think of doing was killing Lazarus, because through him everybody believed. Can you imagine anything more ridiculous than thinking to kill the body of the person whom Jesus has just raised to life again? When Jesus said to Martha, I am the resurrection and the life, he meant that he was the one who controls everybody's death. Yours and mine. Just so wonderful. So we needn't to be frightened or worried about the idea of dying, because Jesus said, I am he that died and am alive again, and I have the keys of death and of hell. I'm so glad that my life is in the hands of Jesus, who can never die again. Is yours?